as we provide this information to council as we find it available. And I thank you for your communicating and continue. I look forward to working with you in Bellwether. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
May I make a quick comment about the planning commission?
Sure.
One of my neighbors, I told you I have a person, he said he was going to call you today.
I wasn't in the office today. I was off-site until right before our meeting.
Appreciate you getting the word out.
But I did get an email yesterday, so maybe it's that person. So
I can give you his name.
good reference. We'll follow up.
Touch
Thank
base
you.
with them and
Mayor?
yeah, anyone, get the word out.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, just real quick. All y'all, if you could just hang on for one more item, I'd appreciate it. Instead of a mass exodus, it would be very much appreciated.
One important.
It is something that we truly, truly love to do, and very seldom do we have an audience like this. So,
Do you have time for one more comment? Just one more quick?
Regarding,
Regarding the Bellwether entrance situation? I'll make it super quick.
all right, well,
Real quick.
that we do have to end
And
it there.
that's it. Yeah, my name's Nancy Johnson, and I live at 19453 102nd Place. And we couldn't hear hardly anything out there, so if it's been addressed, forgive me. But my concern isn't so much like the inconvenience of the trucks and stuff. You know, it's a safety issue for me, because I just saw recently they just released a report on the fires in Lahaina in Maui. I think we've all seen that in Hawaii, the fires. And the report that I saw in the news today said that there was like one tree that came down over the road that basically was the only way in or out. And a lot of people died. And, you know, if where we live now, we've got to snake quite a ways to get back down to the Stieg option, to that stop sign where we can go out onto Stieg or out onto 101 or out through the other lane. I feel like we're pretty vulnerable back there. I feel like getting any emergency people back there might be very difficult because of the construction stuff. But I also think if there was just one accident in that blocked that road, you know, you could have people dying back there and nobody could get to them, not fire, not emergency, nobody could get in, nobody could get out. Am I wrong? No.
yeah,
So that's my
we don't
concern.
need consensus. They've
No,
told
I
us.
just wanted to make sure that there wasn't
They
another.
Just need to
They've
address
told
the
us that
council.
before, they're
Okay.
there.
Okay,
And
it's just,
our police and our fire department, I'll be the first one over there with my truck knocking barriers down coming in too.
yeah, but
So
you know,
just
like I said,
FYI.
we are Lahaina, I feel
We-
like. We are Lahaina there. We are
Well,
trapped.
there's one thing, you
with
ain't
one
got any
entrance.
trees.
Well. But you know, there is such a thing as ground
The
fires
ones
and
you've
whatnot.
got are gonna be
What I can
big in
tell you-
35 years.
Yeah. But I just wanted to
I'm
make.
sorry, I
No,
gotta
and
make
I
that's-
appreciate your comments. What I can tell you is when we communicate kind of with the group, and hopefully that gets out to everyone.
I just wanted to make
Knowing
sure
Ron,
the
I
city
think it will.
understood it has
I have
some
no
liability
offense.
there, right? Because guarantee, I live with my parents. My parents or my dad especially is not in great health. And if we can't get him out and he dies on premise because there's a problem, you know, you'd hear from me. And I'm sure you'd hear from everybody. And
Would
it's a
expect it.
bad position to be in. It's kind of
Absolutely.
a scary position to be in, frightening when you're trapped back
When we
there.
communicate this information back and kind of get you some more details and stuff, I will speak with Matt and Kevin and with our Rogers Field or Fire Chief and see what we can do in terms of, you know, verification that, yep, this meets their standards, this meets their standards, this meets engineering standards, so that.
It's not just about the inconvenience of people, though. I want you to remember, it's the safety first,
Right, that's
really.
what I mean, so that they are able.
Very, very aware.
missed your point about the
Thank you for
discussion
letting
about
me
the balance,
Oh, okay.
emergency access.
Okay, well, thank you all, and we will, like Dean said, if you could stay for one item, that would be fantastic.
Won't take very long.
Did you tell him the item?
Taking them.
No, I'm keeping them suspense.
Did you want to keep it? or-
Santa wouldn't lie to you that
kinda
this is
update us.
something you don't want to see. I'm very open.
Ron, I'll keep it.
You'll enjoy.
Come on in.
Thank you.
Do you want to bring it back?
I'll keep it. Thank you.
Alrighty, so we'll move on to item 6A, which is a swearing in and the oath of office for.
Like 1 second, because they were in City Hall waiting.
You
Gotcha.
guys, Ryan, make sure you get enough zip ties.
Okay. Maybe go to Menards.
troublemaker.
Alan got it.
I think you did good tonight. I really thought you were gonna put your foot in your
My
mouth.
tongue's bleeding.
Come on down.
Well, while we're waiting, maybe I'll get into some of the fun facts. We kind of have a new tradition in town where we've typically done it more on the retirement side, but I think we can take a little twist on it on as we're getting set up on fun things or interesting facts that have happened on February 8th, which is going to be a pretty significant day here for one of our officers, and just kind of picking a couple interesting ones.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Appreciate it. Couple interesting facts that happened on February 8th in the last 50 or so years. Let's see here. Bill Russell in 1960 became the first NBA player with more than 51 rebounds in a game. 1968, Planet of the Apes premiered.
Get your hands off me.
You filthy animal.
In 1974, the U.S. astronauts returned to Earth after an 85-day U.S. space mission called Skylab. In 1994, and this one was provided by staff, so I had to look this up a little bit, but it says Jack Nicholson uses a golf club to attack a car.
Yes.
So that happened apparently. And most recently, 2022, at the Brit Awards, Adele won Best Artist Song and Album of the Year. I will hand it over to you for the ceremony.
I, Dan Wilcox, do solemnly swear
I, Dan Wilcox, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of police officer
the duties of police officer
within and for the City of Corcoran
within and for the City of Corcoran
and the State of Minnesota.
and the State of Minnesota.
On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my integrity, my character,
my integrity, my character,
or the public trust.
or the public trust.
I will always have the courage
I will always have the courage
to hold myself and others
to hold myself and others
accountable for our actions.
accountable for our actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution,
I will always uphold the Constitution,
my community,
my community,
and the agency I serve.
and the agency I serve.
So help me God.
So help me God.
While we're taking care of that, I will just mention a couple facts about Officer Wilcox that I neglected to mention before, but just for some background on him. He worked for the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office from June 2005 to October 2009. Then went to the Golden Valley Police Department from October 2009 all the way to April 2022, where he was promoted to sergeant, actually at Golden Valley in November 2014. He started at the Corcoran PD part-time in June of 22 through November 23. Promoted to sergeant, and then worked. He's also worked 10 years on SWAT, 12 years of training experience, and 7 years as a training sergeant. He's got 9 years in the Minnesota Army National Guard, 1 deployment to Iraq, where he left the Army as a staff sergeant. He does training at Hennepin Technical College, and his family consists of his wife, Sarah, and I believe 3 kids, Marietta, Daryl, and Johanna.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you for letting him do this. Means a lot.
Thank you.
Great, great team there behind you, Big A.
Great
Take
member
care.
of the community. We really appreciate having him.
Thank you again, everybody, for coming.
Have a good night.
Hope to see you all again.
Yes. Seriously, Planning Commission and any meeting, you're more than welcome. We'd love to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
I'll give everyone a couple minutes to use their
Oh, thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
her hard.
What?
Okay, I'll be looking for it. Okay, perfect.
You'll love her.
Awesome. Thanks,
Fantastic.
Ron. I'll be looking for it. Oh, yes, I did get an email from him. Yeah, I didn't find it, so
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, I was approving it. I cut you off. Got two spots. You guys, thanks for coming in. Good to see you.
Pleasure, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Good to see you.
I really appreciate it. Your comments were spot
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
It was a great call to have them stay.
Oh, nice to meet
Nice.
you.
It was a great call.
What's that?
Great call to have them stay. Well, I'm glad they did.
Could have locked the door. We better get 2 planning commissioners out of that.
I think.
And I see them
think we
sitting
will.
right here. Let me take a picture.
Oh, God. Well, there's my retirement.
We can always add people to Charter Commission too.
There you go.
All kinds of opportunities.
That's it. That's the good news.
Thanks, Brent.
Okay. So as they're filing out, we're gonna get ready for, to go over our consent agenda, which consists of items 7A through 7F. Does anyone want to pull anything?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Hold on one second. I'm just gonna make sure Alan doesn't see anything he wants to pull. Okay. Got a motion and a second to approve A through F. Any, or no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Are you getting that down for Michelle when she's? Then we will move on to planning business. We have one item. We'll have a public comment opportunity on this, if there is any, for 8A, which is the 3019 edition concept plan.
Okay, Mayor and Council, our presenter is coming to us remotely because she's sick and she did not want to make everybody sick. And so I need Michelle to come in here for just a second so that she can do that. But until that happens, we're kind of in a pause because I can't bring Corinne up. But here's the slides.
I didn't ask. How many people do we have on line?
Okay.
I usually ask that.
7, Councilmember Van
Welcome, folks. Thank you.
Kendra, can you hear us? You should be live.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for letting me go remote. I have some bug I did not want to share, especially to the mayor with his new baby at home, so.
I appreciate it, and
this-
hope you're feeling better.
So tonight, this is a sketch plan for the 3019 edition, if you go to the next slide. The applicant is requesting informal feedback on a sketch plan on this 66-acre parcel. The top image on the right is the aerial. It's a vacant piece of property, and on the lower right, it's the land use map. The property is guided a mix of rural ag residential and rural service commercial. And the corresponding zoning is rural residential and transitional rural commercial. Transitional rural commercial is a holding zone, similar to the urban reserve, but a holding zone until commercial development is proposed. It's outside of the MUSA at the corner of 19 and 30. And the natural inventory does show some natural resources off-site. The only natural resources on this site are the shoreland from the adjacent creek. The wetland inventory does not show that sort of creek that looks like it exists on the southeast corner of the site. Next slide. Again, this is the zoning map, a mix of the rural residential and the transitional rural commercial. And this is our rural commercial district, so there's several parcels up here that are planned for rural commercial uses, which tend to be, contractors' yards and things, uses that do not require sewer and water. Next slide. This was in your packet. This is the existing development rights map. Council knows there's a long history with the development rights program in Corcoran. This parcel, as it exists, has 7 development rights. And I would note on this slide, you'll note that there's a number of rural commercial properties that also have development rights, shown on the development rights map. Next slide. This is the sketch plan. So on the right, the applicant is showing 4 residential lots with the north-south street, and then on the west side, 15 commercial lots. And that requires both a re-guiding and a rezoning to move the land use boundary between the rural residential and the commercial slightly further east, and then rezone the property from rural residential and transitional rural commercial to rural commercial to accommodate those commercial uses. Next slide. The applicant met several times with staff to discuss development on this site. In October of last year, they submitted a formal development application, and then that application was deemed incomplete due to a number of items. Last month, the city administrator met with the applicant, and the applicant submitted a written request to pause the development proposal and allow a sketch plan to be reviewed at the council, and that's why we're here tonight. Next slide. I want to talk about the development rights program. That's really what the applicant's most interested in, and then talk about a few of the concept plan comments that staff has. Again, the development rights program has been in place since the early 1980s. There was a reset in the early 1990s, and it's a tool to manage density in rural areas to ensure that lots are large enough to accommodate wells and septics. And staff acknowledges there are some inconsistencies between the code and the map. The code does say that the program identifies the maximum number of residential units or non-residential units that may be developed. And in the past, we have applied them to the Dobozinski subdivision, which are the parcels shown on this image with a 2 and another 2. When that property was split, we talked about development rights and how those could be used for the development of the Dobozinski subdivision. And also, when Public Works was developed in 2012, the Rolke property assigned 1 development right for the Public Works facility and 13 development rights for the remaining outlot A. The council was asked to reaffirm that application as part of the Karanimi Meadows development most recently. And to my knowledge, the council has consistently required a development right for residential or commercial lots in the rural area. That is the message we relayed to the applicant when we met with them starting in 2022 about this project and suggested that a concept plan be brought forward to the council to have this discussion. Next slide. So the development has 7 development rights, the parcel has 7 development rights, and the applicant's plan shows 19 lots. That's 12 more than allowed by the code under the policy that the city has used. Next slide. So I discussed this in more detail in the staff report, but really we're asking the council to weigh in on the policy of development rights and either reaffirm the historic council direction that 1 development right is required for development in the rural residential urban reserve and rural commercial districts, or 2, modify the policy as requested by the applicant to remove the requirement for development rights in the rural commercial district. That is a change, but that is certainly something, given the inconsistencies in the code, that you could do. We do think it's important that you clarify that development rights on the rural residential districts remain based on acreage, meaning 1 development right per 10 acres. It would be unfair to all the landowners in Corcoran to re-guide property to commercial and assign those commercial development rights to 15 acres of residential land. So with that, you would allow 2 residential lots on this property where you should make that change, and unlimited commercial lots. And again, regardless of council direction, we would ask that you direct us to initiate a zoning ordinance amendment to clarify your policy direction this evening. I think it's important as land starts to develop in this that we clean up any question about how those development rights get applied. Next slide. So that's the big question in front of the council, but we have provided some additional concept plan comments for review. The primary concern from staff is that the development rights program elimination would then only require compliance with minimum lot size. And we really think these lots proposed are too small to be successful long-term. These lots are similar to what's in the historic industrial district, and we know that those lots are too small for businesses to be able to expand over time. We have concerns about being able to accommodate parking, septics, and outside storage, which is common in the rural commercial district. We have a minimum lot size in the rural commercial district, but just like our minimum lot size of 2 acres in the rural residential, it's balanced by the fact that there's only so many development rights. So I don't think it was anyone's intention to say unlimited 1 acre lots, but to say if you have 5 development rights, you may have a smaller lot and some larger lots. So that is a concern about the viability. The applicant has indicated he will be selling these lots. And so that's going to be an issue we'll be dealing with each of these future developments. And then lastly, there are outstanding issues still about stormwater, traffic, grading, et cetera. Typically, the applicant would submit a concept plan first, and then that would trigger the feasibility study before coming in with a preliminary plat application. In this case, we did it a little bit differently, and so the feasibility study is not yet complete, but certainly know that stormwater is a significant discussion item as we move forward. Next slide. So, excuse me. This is a sketch plan, and so we're asking the council to provide the applicant feedback on the sketch plan, which would be advisory only and is not a binding decision. But really, the issue of development rights is the reason we're here tonight. It's a significant policy issue, and council should provide direction to staff and direct staff to bring back an ordinance amendment to clarify the policy. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kendra. Any questions for Kendra or staff in general on this, or do you want to hear from the applicant?
Kendra, when can I?
Yeah.
So part of this is zoned rural service commercial, right?
It's transitional rural commercial, which will become rural commercial, correct?
And then part of it is zoned rural ag residential, right?
Correct.
And so
Correct.
is it the same in rural service commercial that I just want clarification. Is it the building rights? Is that still something that is used for rural service commercial? Or is that the question on the floor tonight?
That is the question on the floor, Mr. Mayor, council member. We have applied them in the past to the 2 examples I used, the Dobozinski subdivision and the Public Works facility. But to be clear, the code in the rural residential district does not specifically say that.
Okay.
Or in the rural commercial district, but in the rural residential district, it says it applies to residential and non-residential. And the development rights have always, even when it was a handwritten development rights map, applied development rights to commercial property. Obviously, I wasn't here in 1980. There's really no record of that discussion, but that is how it's been applied, but it is not as clear as it should be in the code.
So is there a zoning that would override the building rights? Like if, for example, we zoned it as a business park. Do business parks get to override that rights per acre? Or is that not
Sort of.
in the, you know?
In the MUSA versus out of MUSA.
Is it a MUSA thing?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we can't have business parks outside the MUSA? We don't.
Not like the business park zone that we have.
But if we decided, hey, we really like this project, could we rezone it business parks? business park and we don't have to worry about the building rights, hypothetically? I'm not
Kendra?
advocating, I'm only hypothetical.
You'd have to change the code because the code says no development within the business park district except when a full range of municipal services are available. So the
Okay,
business
I see.
is intended to have sewer and water.
So is that the same in light industrial or mixed use or
Correct.
whatever? We'd
Yep.
have to rezone it
Yep.
or we'd have to allow those uses outside the MUSA.
Yes, you could do a rural business park out here in the rural commercial district on well and septic. I mean, the uses that are allowed out here are auto retail and daycare, office medical, retail's permitted, commercial kennels,
It would just be
contractors.
bigger, it'd have to be bigger lots.
Yes, the
Yeah.
uses that are permitted typically require bigger lots.
Okay, all right, that's it, thank you. Appreciate that.
It would have to be bigger lots and potentially a change in code that we're clarifying for a specific zone what that development rate would be based on. Or are you saying to try to find a way to do it?
Huh?
Are you trying to say to do it away with that? Doesn't include the development rights at all?
Yeah, I'm just clarifying,
Gotcha.
like the end run would be to rezone it. But we don't allow that rezoning out there.
Not currently, yeah.
Yeah. So either we have to, in my opinion, abide by what we already have as code, or we change, like, I don't believe in willy-nilly just saying, it doesn't apply here if it clearly
Right.
should be applied according to the code. So we either have to change the code or change the zoning standard, right?
Yes. And I think
We want to clarify the code either way,
Either way,
Councilman
yeah.
Bottoman.
Okay.
It's
there'll be a code
the
update.
lack of clarity that has brought the applicant here this evening.
All right, fair enough.
Sorry, Dean. No, Dean?
Me? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kendra, just real quick, this is 60-some acres, correct?
Yep, 66 acres.
How much is rural residential?
Proposed or currently?
Current,
I would say currently it's probably about 22 acres.
okay. And then, and again, I'm going someplace, I'll get there. So this whole development could put 2 residential homes on it and 4 ungodly sized commercial buildings, I'll say it that way. Is that a good way of saying it, other than the ungodly portion?
The way we've applied the development program historically is the site has 7 development rights.
7,
And the way
so
the
So we could do 5.
applicant
could
wishes
put
to
5
apply,
really
then
big
they-
buildings on.
Well, I would caution you about that. They could have 5 larger lots.
Or larger lots with
50
smaller
acres,
buildings, yeah.
But,
Okay,
right, I mean, think about, Dobazinski's is on 20-some acres.
yeah, it's just
You know,
something
so think
that's,
about,
it's something that's been there a long time. I understand the comparison, I just,
Dean, you're making me feel old. I was here when that got approved.
well, I'm
That's
way
not-
older than you, Kendra, so I understand the way it is. There was one map that you had up here of the building rights on the properties to the west. And if you go, to the east, if you go straight east on County Road 30, those 2 pink boxes on the north side of County Road 30, right next to Mama G's, are those have building right numbers? Anybody read them? 8 and 7. But that's essentially gonna get thrown out the window because that's MUSA and everything else, okay. I'm just trying to get someplace. I'm not a huge fan of, and I've seen what we did with Corcoran Farms where big buildings were laid out, designed, but nothing's happening, and I don't know the status on that, but again, that's inside the MUSA.
We're changing some code.
Yeah,
because of that
and
project.
we gotta change code on a few things, don't we? So, I'm one that's probably trying to make it too simple. The transition from previous city I was in, the city from the time I was there, transitioned from 20-acre minimum size lots to 10-acre minimum size lots to 5-acre minimum size lots with building rights on each one. How does that occur, Kendra, if we were to take this to 10-acre qualifies you for a building right down to 5 acres takes you to a building right? In this case, it would take them to 14 lots total if we were to essentially double it.
Well, and Kendra, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's something like that is what we could do. I think what staff was pointing out is that they advise us to keep, if we were to make a change like that, to keep the rural residential at the 10 and 1. That is spaced
Yeah,
out.
and that's what I hear too, yes.
But potentially you could
Right.
change whatever that number
Yeah.
is. And I think that would just be a code update.
Wait, to change it to,
Let's say for commercial, for rural commercial, instead of 1 in 10, like it's been based on, if you wanted to change it to 1 in 5. Or like
yeah,
Dean
that's
was
the
saying.
solution.
That's where I'm going, is a 1 in 5. Obviously, the applicant may have some customers that are looking for startup buildings, those kind of things. A lot of what we've always talked about is it's not big enough to grow, it's not big. These parcels, if I may think outside the box here, the things they're doing here is taking somebody from garage type construction company or something at home, and they want to take that next step to an independent building area that is like an industrial park or something to that effect, and move into it, be an owner, have their building, do their things, and when it's time to grow, Kendra has said when the folks down in our current industrial park are wanting to grow, they can't because there's no room. So, I mean, it's somebody that's gonna have to buy this, that's gonna have to understand they're gonna be able to grow or add on if they're built out at the maximum footprint, so.
I think the other,
I'm just thinking deep.
I think Alan
Yeah.
wanted to go quick.
sorry, go
and
ahead,
then everybody-
please.
I just have a couple of questions, but to your point, you've also got properties around there that are guarded rural residential that have a low number of building rights on it, and what would preclude them from saying, well, I'm not gonna make any money if I have to stick with the 4 building rights on rural residential, please re-guide me to rural commercial, now I can put 20 buildings on my site, 20 different properties, that's something to think about too.
Yep, no, that's all stuff I've thought about, but thanks for bringing it up.
But my question to Kendra and staff would be, it seems like it was only yesterday, but I'm sure it was a while ago that we re-looked at building rights. And we did a change to the building rights ordinance. Do you remember when that was?
Correct. That was 2018, I believe. I can confirm that and have Jay follow up, but I think it was 2018, we eliminated the 1 per 30 on a gravel road and went back and made it 1 per 10 for properties on the gravel road.
It's 1 for 20. Kendra, I think it's 1 per 20. We moved it to 1 to 10.
It was
It was 1
one.
per 30
Yeah,
on a
it was
gravel
1
road
for
and 1
30
and on a paved road.
Unless it was paved. I got rid of the paving thing. I remember that.
Interesting.
Gee, deja vu.
So
It
there's
seems like
been
it
a
was only yesterday.
transition recently from,
2018.
okay.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Then, Jeremy?
The point that I was going to make in parallel to what Dean was saying, if we make a decision that allows essentially like the downtown business park to get duplicated in the rural area, we're really making a decision against preserving rural character. In that you're taking area that is more open, less dense, and you're intentionally changing policy to make it advantageous to make it more dense. So from a city vision perspective, I think it runs counter to what we're trying to accomplish. The way that I was reading the code, I think the 1070.70 section doesn't really conflict with the requirement that we have building rights on the commercial parcels. There's just an inconsistency in the verbiage when you compare it to other similar sections. I certainly agree it makes sense to update the code to make them consistent, but I would not want to go in the other direction. If we wanted to make a choice about simplifying the system, getting rid of building rights as a requirement for commercial, I would say we should impose a larger minimum lot size. Maybe those areas would go to a 5-acre minimum lot instead of the 100-foot width that we have today. If you're going to replace building rights with a lot size, you can still maintain the same kind of rural character that we would have today.
Couldn't you do the same thing potentially by changing that number from 1 in 10 to 1 in 5?
But then you are, it's more parcel specific in that case. And you still end up with the issue of some of these will end up having much smaller lots on them and a more dense concentration of commercial buildings.
The number of overall buildings on, or parcels on the site. All will meet that minimum standard, which you're saying could be bumped up.
Right.
Some might be bigger if we just did it the one way. Do you have something to say about that? I heard no.
I guess a policy question to council would be, do we feel like we need to have more rural development of commercial parcels? If the answer to that question is yes, we should talk about mechanism. If the answer to that question is no, we can give more specific feedback to this applicant.
Can I ask Kendra a question? Yep. Is that all right?
Yeah, please.
Kendra, remember when we had the OS&P stuff that we could add at one point it was 3 times the building rights, and then if we did if the applicant did some things, they could multiply the building rights by 2, and I thought we kept that. Is that true or not true? I can't remember.
We do have the OS&P plat, and it applies in the rural residential district, and you, depending what you do, either get 150% increase or 200% increase. That's accurate.
Okay, so only the rural residential and not the...
Right.
All right.
Not the commercial aspect of it.
Still looking for a solution, I
So
guess.
yeah, no. So I mean, in that scenario, if you were able to meet the OS&P requirements, you could potentially do the.
Yeah, it used to be you could put in 45 houses on 15 acres if you had half of it be
left open for future.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then there's some other thing, and then it got to be, I think the council decided that's way too many, but it's not much it was way too many lots on.
Gotcha.
It ended up.
And I don't think it really works to solve the problem that staff has identified about replicating the downtown with commercial lots that don't provide room for expansion.
Yeah, I don't know if I care about that as much, whether they provide room for expansion or not.
Gotcha.
I mean, if you had one commercial lot on 100 acres, you could make the argument in theory, well, what if they want their expansion to be 200 acres? Oh, I guess it doesn't allow for expansion. No, unless a lot had every square mile in the United States, you could make the argument that it doesn't allow for expansion because it depends on how big you want the expansion to be.
Yeah, but one thing you might avoid by having larger lots is the issue what we've had in the last few years where you've had commercial growth inside our area that outgrew its space and had to go on to a vacant lot.
Well, yeah, but we already have that. You can't put stuff on a vacant lot without a building.
Well, we do, but we don't.
Well, I know we changed
do,
it.
but-
But,
Yeah,
I
get
mean,
it.
you could see that in this case where somebody buys a lot and then buys the lot next to them, doesn't develop it, and then it potentially wants to use it for more.
Yeah, so don't we already disallow that?
We do, but we made exceptions.
We did make an exception.
So, how many times would we be asked for something like that in the future? I would rather, we've come across these problems in the past. I want to make sure we learn from them and not replicate them in the future.
So so I would be comfortable, do we need to make a motion, or what do we need to do? We
It's
don't
really-
need to listen to the
It's
application.
really just direction to
don't-
staff, but if the applicants would like to speak, I don't have a problem with it.
No, I'm just saying if the council said, no, we're not gonna change the policy.
Oh, yeah.
There'd be no point in listening to the application,
Right.
but
Yeah, it's essentially a regular sketch plan and direction to staff, and there's a couple of requests that we include or address a couple areas. in it.
I'd like to hear.
yeah, I would
That's
too.
what I-
We've talked about this in the past, and I've used probably a bad word, a napkin plan. This is a well thought out napkin plan, and I'd like to hear what direction they're wanting to go.
Yeah, that would be fantastic if someone from the developer or from the team wanted to speak.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is David Lenhart. I'm an attorney for the developer. I'm with the law firm of Priest Lenhart Allen in St. Michael. I first thank you for letting me speak tonight, and I'm just going to speak really pretty briefly just on what you've all been discussing, the inconsistency between your zoning ordinance and the application of these development rights against the commercial part of this plan. And it's already been touched upon, so I'll try to be really brief, but your code section 1070.070 pretty clearly states that the intention is to apply this to the residential areas, and that's consistent with how the other parts of the zoning ordinance read. So 1070.070, I'll just paraphrase quickly, but it just, the development rights maps reflects the number of development rights remaining on properties, et cetera, and is intended to show the maximum number of residential units that may be developed per an individual parcel. And there's nothing in there that talks about an intention to impose development rights against the commercial parcels. And that's consistent with the residential portions of your zoning code. 1040.020, which is Urban Reserve District, the UR, and then the 1040.030, which is the rural residential, RR. Each of those have verbiage that specifically talks about the development rights and refers to the development rights map, and clearly states that it imposes these development rights restrictions on the residential developments of those residential zoned or guided parcels. That's in 1040.020, and it's also in 1040.030, the two rural residential areas. When you get to 1040.090, which is the CR, rural commercial, and 1040.095, which is the TRC, or transitional rural commercial, each of those do not mention the development rights map or development rights restrictions at all. It just talks about the regular zoning area requirements like minimum lot size and setbacks and things of that nature. But there's nothing in there, again, on either 090 or 095 that refers at all to imposing development rights restrictions against these two commercial areas. And again, that's consistent with the way the zoning code that talks about the development rights, the 070, it's consistent with that. So I guess that is the issue that we're wrestling with, is You know, the developers laid out the sketch plan, which is, the planner has clearly indicated that it exceeds what the city or the planning staff has told us are allowed, but it's our position, it's not just a clarification, it's, you know, the zoning code doesn't mention it at all for development rights limitations on the commercial, rural commercial areas. So that's, so I guess our position would be that that should be allowed under your current zoning ordinance. You know, I'll let my client or his engineer Scott Dalkey speak to the sketch plan itself. That's not anything I can talk to. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know that's kind of how we look at it, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Mayor and Council, thanks. Thanks for your time tonight. Scott Dalkey, Civil Engineering Site Design. I guess I'll try just talk a little bit about, you know, some of our thoughts on what we're proposing here. And, you know, one of the things that I see, you know, not only with this project, but with a lot of development projects that I work on. You know, I do a lot of private development work in engineering, I do site design for all areas of the metro area. And one of the biggest things that we struggle with continuously is trying to keep things affordable. And 9 times out of 10, the larger the parcels end up being, the larger the buildings end up having to be, the larger the site improvements have to be, the larger the cost ends up being. And there's a lot of entities out there that just can't afford to do that. One of our focuses here is to try and keep things reasonable, but still keep a high quality in what we're doing here. What our sketch plan shows is in compliance with what the city code requires as far as, you know, lot coverage. And that's one thing that I want to bring out is the code does have, and I guess I'm going to back up a step. I'm going to disagree with Kendra in her comments about that the lot sizes are too small. I would agree if we were doing 1 acre lots, commercial wise, yeah, that we see. You have some of that downtown. We see that in other places, other, you know, Buffalo, Monticello, Big Lake. Oh, there's places all over the place that had, you know, 1 acre commercial lots, well and septic before they had the sewer systems. And now, after this many years, they really don't function very well. 2.5 acres though, from what I see, is a function of size. We can get a septic site and septic and well on here. We are showing a building that's 10,000 square feet in size. What's hatched in on this plan here, your code has a maximum 50% impervious. So of that 2.5 acres, you can only have 50% of that covered by either buildings, parking, outdoor storage, sidewalks, driveways, that kind of stuff. Everything else has to be green space. So what I have hatched in here is showing what the maximum impervious could be. Everything else that's not hatched in is green space. You recently enacted the increased buffer requirements for screening, right, just last year. This plan will accommodate that with no problem. There'll be lots of screening around the outer boundaries of it. We butt up against residential to the north. We butt up against County Road 19. There's going to be lots of room, plenty of room to meet the landscape and buffer requirements. We're going to be able to handle all the stormwater needs by the 50% impervious coverage here. We're handling that on site. There's not going to be any rate increase from stormwater running off of this site after the development than what goes off the site prior to development. We're meeting all the water quality requirements that watershed has. We're doing everything that we can do to, you know, meet all the requirements that are out there with the city, with the watershed. And we're trying to end up with a development site that, you know, this truly is like a, you hear the word, you know, incubator type areas. Well, to me, this is a good incubator type project for commercial businesses that are in the process. Yes, they're big enough to outgrow a garage space. They need a small building where they need an office. Maybe they need a couple of staff people. They can have facilities in there, bathroom, couple of office spaces in there. They need a small shop area to fix their equipment or store materials. They need a small outdoor storage area. Over time, might they buy the next lot next to them and and combine those lots, replat 2 lots into one and build a bigger building or expand their building? Absolutely. We see that all over the place. But what I think gets lost by making the requirements too large is the affordability factor that it's a need that we see continuously.
Thank you.
Okay, any thoughts, questions there?
Can I ask a question of staff? So this is ghost plotted down in the southwest corner. There's already a plan in place for that property. If we were to change our practice or policy, whatever you want to call it, this could potentially develop into 4 smaller lots. Is that the case?
Kendra, can you respond to that?
Now I can. I muted myself to cough and then realized Michelle had to unmute me. Sorry about that. Yes, in fact, that's true, Councilmember Schultz. If you change the policy, it affects this, it affects all of those properties along 19. So it really would allow a densification of small commercial lots.
Thank you.
If we were to change either what the building rates are based off of, or potentially Jeremy's suggestion of not having
5 acre
a building
minimum.
lots, but increasing lot size requirements.
Jeremy, would you suggest that for the whole town, or just?
If you're going to exempt commercial from the building rights system, I think the existing lot sizes are too small, and we should talk about what the right size is. I would throw out 5 or 10 acres for those as a starting point.
So that would change everything in the whole town?
For TCR, or for rural commercial, yeah.
10 may be too big in my mind.
For rural commercial?
Yeah.
Do you have a number that you think might be more appropriate?
I only picked 10 because that's what the latest value for residential lots was.
Oh. Be consistent. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're favoring one zone type over another.
Other than it's a lot more limited in where it's zoned
There's
currently.
fewer of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at the development map, there's not that many parcels this impacts, is there?
There's not many what?
Parcels that this would change with impact?
I think that's what Kendra was touching on a little bit. There's
Everything south on 19
Yeah.
would change them.
But a lot of those already have something on it, right?
Right.
And they
But they could replat,
they
depending on how
could
big
tear
they are.
down and rebuild
I
more.
suppose, yeah.
couldn't they?
It's the Doble property and the properties just south of that.
Yeah.
Well,
And when was this updated? 2020. I think it extends a little farther down towards Public Works.
What about around that Public Works? It would be that too, wouldn't it? Isn't there 4 lots in there?
Yeah.
that's rural residential.
Are we allowed commercial
No,
there?
on the
No,
east,
there's
on the
no
west
commercial.
side of the creek.
Right,
That's-
Kendra?
They've talked about that. It has not been re-guided behind Public Works.
Okay,
This applicant owns that property as well, is my understanding, so I'm
Oh.
sure that there's something similar. We've seen a concept plan for commercial, but have not received a re-guiding or rezoning request.
okay.
So it would apply behind Public Works, it would apply to Dobo. There's a couple of other parcels that could be impacted at the intersection of 19 and 10. Again, if you chose to re-guide land from rural residential to rural commercial like we did for D&D, it impacts that as well. But the reality is the people we see come in are looking for 10-acre parcels. They're not looking for 2.5-acre parcels. I think it really does change the appearance of that rural commercial zone. But either way, I think it's important that you give us direction and we can be consistent and clean up that code and development rights map. They go together. The development rights map is adopted and does show development rights on rural commercial property.
Can I ask her a question?
Yes, please.
John, is there, maybe I'm thinking about this wrong, but is there a subjugation where in our code, if we mention that it's 10 acres per, building rights are at 7, or 10 acres equals 1 building right, do we have to specifically mention it in other areas where that impacts? Or is it, if it mentions it once, are all the other sections of the code that are subjugated by that piece? Do we specifically have to point it out, or are we covered when we say, do you get what I'm asking? So you mentioned some of the areas of the code don't say specifically that it's 10 per. Is our code written in such a manner that because we mentioned it, it naturally covers the specifics that their attorney mentioned? Or is it's not that clear?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Bottom, members of council. I think our code definitely could do with some cleanup and some clarification. I think it's been said by several people tonight, and I've looked at the applicable sections and I agree. You can read one section of it, interpret it one way, read another section and say, oh, okay, well I see actually the opposite side of it here. Development rights map is very clear in the other direction. And there is city authority, of course, to change that or to clarify that via any number of means. But I think what staff is really looking for here is what the council's direction would be if there is a desire, because I agree with the administrator as well, that there should be clarification in either direction, whether we are sticking with what's on the development rights map or if we're actually going to amend it to a different lot size standard or something along those lines. We would just want that direction to make sure that all aspects of that can all fit together so that we don't run into these problems of interpretation.
I guess at this point, I would suggest we direct staff just to clear up the language to go with what a past practice is. And then if we want to take on a bigger chunk and look at changing it, I think that's a bigger feat.
And then maybe, would that be a proposed code change, as part of the application process, if someone wanted to suggest a different standard?
That's one way to handle it. I feel like when we set goals, this wasn't an area that we really wanted to focus on. So maybe that's something, if council wants to look at our goals again, is that something we want to do this year? Maybe it's something we want to keep in the back of our minds for 2025. But I agree with you, Alan. The first step is probably to ensure clarity, so we're not misleading people. But the way the inconsistencies could be perceived in the absence of feedback from staff and council.
What about the feedback to the applicant on the specifics within the?
My feedback is if they can stay within the building rights allowance, I'm fine with the adjustment of the division between the residential and commercial to align with the street. I feel like that makes for a more logical break. And you could certainly foresee a different way of dividing those 7 building rights, maybe to optimize the specific commercial lots that are probably more their focus.
Can I ask the applicant, is the street placement where it accesses off 30, is that designed because of the residential, or is that designed more so because of the county's restriction, how far back you have to stay from 19?
We did reach out to the highway department and discuss this location with them, and this, we ended up arriving at this in discussion with them.
Go ahead. The county is requiring a turn lane. That turn lane is $500,000. If I have to put bigger than the lot, less lots than what I'm showing, there won't be another development. I'll nix another development in Corcoran. I nixed one because your engineer kept adding and adding and adding, and I said, no, I'm out of here. I sold it to Eber. This will be another one that sits there. It'll go up for sale. So this is the only, if I don't put a turn lane in, okay, I can go with the 7 lots, but once you put $500,000 on it, who's gonna pay for that? City wanna pay for it? I'll do the 7 lots. Otherwise, it doesn't work. You don't want development? That's okay, there's other municipalities that I can go to. But you've got, who would, I said this to Kendra and the staff, why would you limit the industrial? This is your tax base. Look at Rogers. I mean, let's nix all the industrial in Corcoran. Well, you know, who's gonna pay your taxes? That's my opinion. So.
What if you made it all commercial and got rid of the residential? Would that
I'm
be-
okay with that.
You get the 7. Or, yeah, 7.
So,
Well, he needs more than 7. Sounds
Right.
like to make
when I meet with the staff, it's all outdoor storage, outdoor storage. Go drive and park over at the convenience store in Birchfield. Is that what you want to see? Do you want to see 10 acres of junk? I'm not going to do it. Somebody else might do it, but I'm not going to put my name on that development. I'd be ashamed of it. This is going to be a nice development. There'll be smaller lots in there. It'll be screened and not a lot of junk and not a lot of cars. I mean, you want 5 lots in there, you're going to have what we have in downtown Birchfield.
Yeah, so I get what you're saying, and you know, when you talk about rural character and stuff, I also think about, you know, you have like every 10-acre business, it's like a pole barn and then 9 acres of all the shit they need to run their business. And some of them look terrible. And so to your point, and those are your words, so I felt like I could repeat them, but I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm trying to think of whether this looks more of like some sort of character than a 10-acre lot with 9 acres of outdoor storage.
Kendra, can you speak, you mentioned you get calls for 10-acre lots. What do those people have in mind for those parcels if they were available?
Well, I mean, one example is the project down on Rolling Hills Road. Remember, they were looking to move their business from Plymouth into Corcoran. They wanted a 10-acre site for their corporate office. They didn't have any outside storage, did have a shed or an accessory building, I would call it, related to that, where they did some manufacturing and some vehicle repair. But that was a really nice project that just didn't have a lot. Not everything we get questions about is a contractor's yard. We do get those kinds of office, corporate, headquarter type things once in a while. And I would just add, whatever you may think about what's in Birchville today, we do have different standards today than we did when a lot of those buildings were constructed. And again, we do have a 50% maximum impervious surface coverage. We have landscaping requirements, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think whatever comes on this site will look like some of the things that exist today.
I guess I have a hard time visualizing what you mean by rural character when it comes to commercial, because when I drive to western North Dakota and go through every little small town to go pheasant hunting, rural commercial looks like a bunch of shit in the yard. So that's my vision of rural commercial, to be honest with you. And it's not gonna be, you know, an office complex in Edina or Bloomington, something like that.
To me, I think if we were open to that and kind of touching on what you were saying, is the 10-acre lot with a bunch of stuff in the yard, is that better? Is that more rural feeling, rural look? Or is that even what we're trying can accomplish in general? Would be potential, and maybe it's bringing it to planning process-wise for this, but looking at keeping the rural residential the same 1 in 10, but changing considering changing the commercial, rural commercial zoning rights to a different standard that's lower. That we try to find that sweet spot that probably doesn't allow this site plan as is, but something in between what's currently allowed and what's being proposed here.
Napa is 1.5 acres. If you, yeah, and Treptows is like 1.5 acres, or like back in the, most of the lots are like 1.5 acres, and it doesn't seem to, and it doesn't seem to me like.
In the industrial park currently.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't.
Oh, I agree with you.
West side was 1.7, Sunram's like 2.5.
Yeah, so it's not like, those are small.
Right.
I wish there was a way, because for me personally, like, there are things that I would die on the hill for, and things that I absolutely want to protect, and one of them is the 10-acre non-MUSA building rights. That building rights thing is so important, it's so unique, it's what keeps our rural character, and
For residential.
for residential, yeah, so, but, something like this, I think would actually look nicer than 10-acre lots.
Well, and I think that's what Dean was getting at with for residential. Yes, I agree that that's not something we wanted to touch on residential, and I think staff's asking us to.
But we don't want to have this in the middle of, like, next to Dean's house or something like that. It's not going to work.
And it wouldn't be
confined.
currently zoned possibly.
And that's the other thing, is that we'd have the lever of what we rezone in the future. You know, there's limited area that's zoned that way.
Yeah.
Currently, we just have to take that into consideration if we were considering rezoning anything else ever to that.
So if we go to a residential example, Dean's house, the property behind my property was 90 acres. That was split to 45 was going to be left alone, and then the other 45 acres was going to then be 18 building rights on 45 acres.
That was an OSMP, though, right?
Yeah. Right behind my place, that's what is, and I think even the applicant was the owner of that. So I mean, 45 with 18 was 3 units per acre.
Yeah, I think we got.
Or 3 acres per
We
unit.
got rid of that. Didn't we, Ken Resin? 2 the max?
2 is the
times?
max.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what
And
they did,
again-
and it was set to go in at 18
In order.
18 building rights on
Oh,
45
that's what you're saying. They
acres.
split
Yeah.
it. This was going to stay. Yeah.
And then the issue related to the turn lane and stuff wasn't affordable, couldn't make it happen, and that whole thing went away. But it just, in this case, you guys are saying kind of what I want to say. I'd like to leave rural, and that might not be what's liked, but this area is outside the MUSA, what makes sense? And and thinking about a number of places, and we have a lot of garage, repair shops and stuff here in our town, this is a way for them to grow out of the garage.
Oh, you mean
Then
home
we're-
garages?
Yep, home garage repair places, construction companies working out of their properties. This would give them a headquarter area, with some inside storage and outside storage. I like Kendra's comments related to parking and those kind of things. If one of these were to be a auto repair place, and I don't know if it would be sold that way, 14 parking spots ain't enough for auto repair place, because we just stepped through ProTech and their addition and stuff, they needed more. So is it something we want to talk about?
I think it's gonna snowball, to Alan's earlier point, that if there's a drastically different approach to industrial parcels, we're going to see more people wanting their properties rezoned. Past concepts that we've looked at will probably try to shift.
But we haven't rezoned any residential areas. And I
Well,
wouldn't
if we're not
stand
gonna
for
say
that.
no to somebody who wants us to change how we interpret policy, do you think we're gonna say no to people who want us to change their zoning of their own property? I don't
Well,
think
we
would.
have before many times, especially with comp plan. We've re-guided people's property and they've asked us not to. So we don't have to go with what people ask, we go with what's the better benefit for the city as a whole, right? Actually, when I look at this deeper, I have to tell you, I'd rather have the 4 houses there than not. Because I didn't realize that there's a residential property directly to the
Directly east, yeah.
So, if my comment is on your plan, I like this plan now better than I did 20 minutes ago.
That gets trickier to do, even if we were to make an
Yeah,
adjustment.
because those are only 2-3 acre lots with separated by the mitigation
Right.
regional holding pond.
I think the hash marks though that he has on the impervious surface does a pretty good job, because you got to realize that a lot of these people, they may not need yard space, they might need parking space, and that impervious, maybe not yard, it may be parking for whatever the heat grow or do.
Right.
I'm actually leaning more now to liking it. Or
But
more and
did
more.
you, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I think the issue with the 4, and I like that having the 4 houses too, just in theory, but I think the issue there becomes, that's what, 22 acres? And so. how would-
15.
It was.
It's only
that
15 acres
decreased to
now.
15.
Okay, 15. How would you even get 2 on there then? That's more than 10 for the houses. I mean, certainly, how would you get
East
4?
of the north-south road.
Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 houses, they're all 4 acre, 3 acres, 4.4 acres,
Right, but
4.65.
that, this plan doesn't match. I mean, if we changed everything, yes, it could.
It wouldn't fit if we changed everything to 5 residentially, it wouldn't work. This is still
Right.
less or more density than 5 units per acre, and we were talking, we weren't gonna change residential from 10.
Does that track with what I'm saying, Kendra, regarding the residential and the building rights?
Yeah, so I think what I've heard the council say is there's not an interest in changing the development rights program. So on those 15 acres, they could do 2 lots, 2 residential lots, not 4. But that you like that idea of the transition. Is that, I'm still not sure I have clear direction on the commercial. I thought I heard that we did not want to change our policy, but now I feel like I might be hearing something different. So I'm not sure I have good direction yet on
And I
that.
think we're still working through that aspect.
Well,
of
my
it.
first comment was to clarify the policy and then look at changing it.
Okay.
But I guess that's where, I think you gotta clarify it first, no matter what, or else you just gotta go into a deep change, and I don't know we're prepared to say we're gonna do a deep change tonight.
Right.
That's the ask.
So then what becomes the process to look at that, the appropriate process to consider a change?
We could ask the planning commission to do a work session.
Well, I mean, he really has to come back to us, doesn't he, with a request to change ordinance, and then,
That's what I think.
and then it would, we have to agree to take it up, and then the cost.
Any thoughts on what the appropriate process would be for that?
Yeah, I think if your direction at present is to maintain the status quo, then you direct staff to have code, make the amendments to have code reflect that consistently. And if you'd like to discuss the issue further, you can entertain an application for a code amendment, or you can take it up with your own volition just to review the issue for further density in the commercial district.
Okay. So maybe that is the right game plan, is to direct staff for now to get that consistency of the code, reaffirm where we are, and if we'd like, and it sounds like there's a lot of thoughts here, so we probably would like to, in some form, to take this up and discuss further. Then either have a discussion with the applicant on making that request, or if, probably the easiest way to do it, I would think.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of take it from there, based on if a change is made from that request, based on what the extent of it is, how that would apply to this plan, and feasibility would kind of be determined off of that.
So to clarify, Mayor, what I understand is a maintenance of the status quo, but clarifying the language as it relates to commercial or transitional commercial and rural areas, and that being one building right per 10 acres. Clarifying the code in those areas that had been identified is 1040.090 and 1040.095, which are the two areas that have been confusing. And then we'll get further guidance after we brought that forward for clarification on what the council would like to do for next steps. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, I think it's gotta be an ordinance change initiated by the applicant.
By the applicant, if they wanted to consider specifically a change in the rural commercial.
So the step of clarifying doesn't require an applicant request, as I understood.
Correct. I think we can do the code clarification either way. I would recommend you do that just to make that as clear as we can make it in the short term. The longer term question would be, do we want to, if you want to have the applicant apply for a code amendment to entertain maybe a specific density requirement, we could do that. That would be different than the status quo, and you could entertain it under that application. But I think what we're hearing the council say tonight is presently you would want to keep consistent with what you said in the past, that it's the map and it's the 1 per 10, right?
Yes, and then evaluate if that.
Right. So we just want to, we'll clarify.
Want to come up.
So our position is the code, how do I say this? The code is unclear, and when the code is unclear, we're going to let a judge decide what's clear. Now, you guys can clear it up, but I already have an application in. In fact, I had an application in here 3 years ago and pulled it because Kendra won't let it go forward because it doesn't meet her interpretation of the code. So how do I, and I'm not going to ask for a code amendment because it isn't in the code. The code's real clear. It doesn't state it. And the law states when it isn't clear, it favors the landowner. So to change stuff now, I've got an application in. Kendra won't let it proceed because it doesn't meet her approval. But I have paid the fees, and we've been waiting since October for it to go forward. So I mean, I'm going to ask a judge for it to go forward. That's the only thing I can do. Now, you can change the code in the future, but it doesn't affect this, it won't affect this development. That's my opinion, so. So we should come to a happy medium. What do you want?
That's true. Obviously you can't change. We'd have to just, one way or another, but what are your opinions on having those 2.5 acre business lots? I mean, if we all don't like it, I don't know, Jeremy, I kind of thought you said you don't like it, and Ellen and I kind of think it's okay.
I think as proposed, it's gonna run into some issues through the process in terms of the parking. I could be wrong. But I think I see some value in what you were talking about of not having, or not needing to have necessarily the 10 acre lots for the rural commercial, and that this could have some value and still be a presentable kind of different option that we've talked about. And I think we'd certainly want to keep it limited in scope to where we're rezoning in the future, unless it's something that, you know, we particularly thought was good for the city on a widespread basis, which I would be pretty hesitant about. But in terms of this site, I don't know that I'd support this version as is, but I think potentially could get to a version similar that could work.
Can I ask a question for staff?
Sure.
So we have an application already in, but this is the first time we're seeing a sketch plan?
So I can speak to that, Councilmember Schultz. When I arrived here in December, I wasn't made aware of this until probably early January, and it had come up because Mr. Sherwood reached out to me, and so we sat down and we had a conversation about it, and I said it presently doesn't meet process or meet all the requirements. Normally, it was a circumvention of process. Really, that's what happened. The sketch plan should have come forward first. It did not. And so that's why when I met with the applicant, I said, here would be a way that we could get the sketch plan in front of council per your desire. And what was also clear to me was the applicant's concern about rural residential versus rural commercial density and the lack of clarity, which we spent a lot of time talking about tonight. That was at the heart of why it's stopped. And so when I got here, I met with him about 3 weeks ago, and I said, we can get you on the agenda for February 8th if you will request to stop the process for your application and come back and do something that should have happened at the front end of your process.
Yeah, I mean, it seems it's a little, I can see your frustration, but it's a little frustrating to sit here too and see a sketch plan and then find out you already had an application in. And it seems like we're put in a position that either we change or the judge will change it for us.
Our job is to read the code and do what's in the code. That's the law. The law is the code. We fit within the code. So I don't need to come with a sketch plan if I fit within the code. And this does. And so I've been asking for Planning Commission and Council or the council to approve what the code says.
But you're asking for rezoning too, right?
No, that's because the staff, the city staff has moved the line. I'll put the line back exactly where the comp plan says it should be, but the county's not gonna like it, and especially the staff. I don't know that the county has really viewed this yet, but the staff has said, this is where your road goes. We had to do that. We didn't have a choice. Engineering, your engineering department said this is where we want the road to go because on the south this is lot lines and so forth. We agreed with that, but I'll move the road back and then I won't ask for rezoning. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, you can't make me do one thing and then penalize me for doing it on the other hand. So you don't sit in them 3 years of staff meetings. How many times have we met with Kendra and how many hours have we spent on this and how many thousands of dollars to get to this point where I'm drawing a line in the sand. I have to. I mean, otherwise, put a for sale sign up and I'm moving, you know. But that is this the way you want to run a city? No developers, you know, except if there's sewer and water? Well, okay.
Well, I thought we made a change years ago to go to sketch plans early on with limited amount of information so you wouldn't get way down the road. No, it's not required, but it's suggested, and it makes these conversations a lot easier when we get into them.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
is open forum available for people in his position?
Sure.
So there's no reason any citizen can't come talk to council in person if they want to share something.
Right.
Maybe that would be helpful in the future.
If I can ask real quick,
Yeah.
if you move that road, then what would happen? What layout would you have? How many single-family homes and how many?
We'd probably get our 7 lots in there.
You do 7 commercial?
No, residential. And we put 2 little cul-de-sacs in running. If the road was moved west, we'd have 2 little cul-de-sacs.
It would all be residential then?
No, and then on the west side, on the east side, it would be residential. On the west side, it would be commercial. And I don't know how many lots you'd probably take out.
But you'd put 7 on 22 acres when we're saying 10 is the minimum? 10 acres is, I only see 2 going on 22 acres. If I'm saying everything right, by what we're talking about, again, sketch plan, those kind of things, I'm asking.
That Kendra has thrown up.
Not Kendra.
Okay, the 10 acres that have
It's been there
thrown up for
forever,
the staff
yeah.
is news to me. I always have looked at your map that she brought up tonight, what is it, the building rights? Because there's a lot of parcels you have 0 building rights. Now I'm gonna go out there and buy something that has 0 building rights, 20, 30 acres, and come in and say, here's I want 3 building rights on it. No, you don't have that. So you can't talk.
It was based on that.
When it works for you over here and then change it over here, it doesn't work that way.
Wait, what? You can't buy a,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
if-
I'm gonna buy something now, 30, 40 acres that has 0 building rights, all been used up, sold off,
yeah.
whatever, and I'm gonna demand 4 building
We've
rights.
we've had
I
all
wouldn't
kinds of
recommend
people
it.
come in and talk to us about that, and
And what do you do?
we don't grant them.
Yeah.
They've been used up.
They've been used.
Well, see, that's why you're dictating it's used up. You can't say,
We
you
do
can't
it.
talk out of both sides of your mouth.
I'm not saying, well, I don't know what you're,
I-
I don't know what you're saying, but it's irrelevant anyways.
Yes, because the road is where it has to be.
Yeah, it would, so. I don't mind the sketch plan how it is.
Okay.
If there was a way to,
How do you codify that?
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you codify it. I don't know if I'm in love with it.
Right.
That's your application, right? I feel like you can talk.
Why, I'm okay with calling a timeout. If you guys set up a business park, rural business park district that you talked about at first, or even a conditional use permit, not a conditional, what do you call it, PUD, where it's a special. I want to see what it looks like, and under these circumstances, maybe it works. I'm on a busy intersection there, I'm not, it wouldn't work. If I wanted to put it anywhere, asked to come in and rezone this property. So, if you want to do that, if you want to consider something on that order,
I think the consideration that we've kind of discussed a bit here tonight would kind of be along those lines if we were looking at making a change to that.
instead of opening up all the CU property around Birchville and that to change the building rights or just take the building rights out, do it as a industrial, I want a business park, a special, put that within the code. I'm okay if you want to call a timeout to get that redone so it's.
My understanding of specifically what you'd be asking there would be basically adding a new zoning district.
I think he's asking for this to be done as a PUD.
Can it be done as a PUD out of Musa?
Should have had a planner here first.
Kendra, did you hear the question? Could this applicant have that property considered with a PUD?
I think they could, but again, the same thing with PUDs, you start with the basis of the code. So at the end of the day, the question is there a reason to change the way we've been applying the building rights or development rights? And there's a lot of ways we can do this. We can just, put a moratorium on and just make this a discussion if this is a priority for the council. A PUD is one path forward, but again, you still have to start with the building rights.
Right.
Well, it appears there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 parcels impacted with building rights in this area. This parcel, the Doble parcel, the parcel directly below it, and one directly across 19, is that correct?
I'm looking.
I mean, everything else that has commercial is inside the MUSA.
Natalie, can you hear me? If you would like to add to the conversation, go ahead and unmute.
Natalie Davis, our planner, wanted to make a comment.
We can't hear you, Natalie.
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, just barely though.
I just wanted to add a point of clarification. Our city code, there is a clause that says PUDs can be applied to rural, residential, or commercial rural, except for OS&Ps. So I don't think PUD would be the proper route for outside of the MUSA, just to clarify.
Thank you, Natalie.
So it would essentially be that previous conversation of if we wanted to look at adjusting.
Well, we could make it a rural commercial district, couldn't we? Apply district standards to it, just like we apply northwest, east standards, and southeast standards.
Just for those 4 guided properties?
Well, it would include, no,
Well, it's
it'd have to be
more
a
than 4.
continuous area, so it would be that whole area that's currently transitional rural commercial or rural commercial. So from his property down to the parcel just south of 10, which we don't have to worry about, that's been sold and developed, and we have a few small residential properties down there right now that are guided.
Created district guidelines for that limited area.
Yeah. Just trap it in that area.
Theory, that's a route.
So would you include the around public works then?
No, that's not currently in that area. Right now, that's rural residential, so.
That gets to be a whole different discussion, I think. I think in terms of this site, that would be a potential route. Would probably take some time.
So if you want to get rid of the commercial development rights, you could modify the rural commercial standards. That's a larger discussion and affects multiple landowners.
But it only affects this area.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that's what I was
So if you,
suggesting earlier.
yeah.
That could accomplish Councilmember Nichols' objectives as well, as we clarify the character that we're seeking to, as a further discussion. If we modify rural commercial standards, we can take the different variables that have been part of the conversation to include the applicant's points and bring those into some kind of cogent new way to think.
I think if we do that, we would want to have them be, this is just thinking aloud, that if city sewer and water actually ever come out there, that they have to hook up to it. And it might be 50 years, but rather than...
I think that's the case for anything that really develops.
Well, but what we don't want to have happen that the existing commercial property properties were forced to be hooked to city sewer and water.
Existing
City sewer and
today.
water, yeah. The whole
Industrial park.
it wasn't written in code in the 50s when it came in, and then the city said, by the way, you have to hook up to city and sewer and water.
So you're saying you would want that requirement in
We
there?
would. We
Okay.
want it in the code, so like there's no surprises.
But grandfathered property owners is what I heard you say, Councilmember Bottom. Like those who've been here wouldn't have to abide by the same future requirement.
Yeah, we would just want like all of these to connect. That's gonna be a long way out.
Similar to what
If we recodify that area, we're gonna wanna change.
Well, right
If
now.
we allow 2.5 acre stuff.
But either way, if we allowed just based on what our belief code is currently of the 1 in 10, so the 5 or whatever commercial lots, they would have the requirement to hook up to sewer and water when available.
Oh, they would? It's
I
already
believe
in the
so.
code?
Can you clarify that, Kendra or Natalie? Would the present conditions require property owners to hook up to future sewer and water if and when it arrives in that space?
Well, our policy, I don't think, and Kevin can probably answer that better than me. I'm not sure what our sewer policy is for that.
For the rural?
Yeah, for up there.
I don't know off the top of my head.
It doesn't matter for today.
Yeah, again, that's something that might not happen in any of our lifetimes.
All right,
So, trying to think of how we word this up in direction to staff and get to next steps here.
If we're open to doing a rural commercial district and have standards, then my suggestion was we move forward with that and not waste our time with the other aspect of it.
I'd be fine with that.
Either way, he's already got an application in, so he's under the current code anyway, so.
Here's an incomplete application in. Also, I just want to clarify.
Incomplete. What needs to be done? We do everything that needs to be done. It's still incomplete. So
I can look into that. I don't think we're gonna be able to sort that out.
No, staff let me
It's a
provide a
different,
list.
that's a different topic. I think we've deemed it
But
incomplete.
I'm happy to maybe even look into
He
it.
has issue with that we've deemed it incomplete. But maybe we can, without having to even care whether it's incomplete or not, we can maybe figure something out.
Mhm. So yeah, I think I could get behind Alan's
Yeah,
idea.
do we need to make a motion, direct
We
staff?
Make a
vote?
motion to direct staff to maintain the, clarify, we maintain the rural residential standards and look into
Rural commercial district standards.
creation of that, and bring it back to council, and probably through planning.
Yeah, my presumption would be that would be a planning commission task. Just want to clarify for you all that that would be the process that you would prefer.
We would have to,
I think it
yeah.
has to.
Okay.
Do we have a time frame idea? Are we talking end of second quarter?
If that's your guidance, we can put that on the work plan. It might mean some other things have to get adjusted that we'd already had on the work plan for the second quarter, but if you'd like this to be a higher level priority.
I think it'd be smart to move it up, otherwise he just moves forward with the current plan.
I don't disagree. I'm just seeking clarification.
I mean, I think we could set a target date like that for the beginning of the process.
So by end of second quarter, the planning commission come back with a clarification, consideration proposal for modifying rural commercial standards.
Yep, and maybe if staff could bring back to us next week or next meeting or whatever, just maybe what the implications of moving it upward are.
I can provide an email update as well.
Can you work with that?
So clarify what you're telling me. Do I have to sit and wait? I'm on about my.
Wait, it sounds like.
When my first application in was 3.5 years ago. before we got frustrated and pulled it because she won't let it go forward at that time. Now she won't let it go forward here. And now we're asking for the second quarter. I think I want to proceed with my plan. If you want to deny it, you're okay with that, I'm okay with that. Deny it, and then what?
We're not in a position to approve or deny anything tonight.
No, I know that, but I'm going to proceed and complete whatever I have to do and proceed through the Planning Commission Council. I can't, I don't know what you're going to come up with at the end of the second quarter. If I pull it, then it's a new application. And I don't want to go under the new guidelines. I don't know what they're going to do.
My suggestion would not be to pull it. My guess is that what we come up with is going to be somewhat close to what you have. Is that a good?
Close, certainly closer than what the current interpretation that we have is.
I would think
I know
so.
you're frustrated, but this is literally the first time we've seen it. So if you just bear with us, I don't think we're working against you. I think maybe we will ultimately not agree, but for our first time looking at it, I think if you can give us a little bit of time, we might come up with something that's palatable, and then we don't have to fight about it.
Okay.
It's been a long time. Obviously, you're frustrated.
Yeah.
I totally understand.
Okay. Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, on to item 9, unfinished business. We do have a public comment opportunity.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, guys. That's it. We have a public comment opportunity for those still in person for items 9A through D. We'll do that here quick, and then we'll move into item 9A. No takers? Okay. 9A, organics recycling.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Kathy Hughes, Administrative Services Director. In 2023, per Hennepin County Ordinance 13, state law, and Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's recycling requirement, the city had 3 options in order to comply with the organics recycling requirement. City provide an organics recycling drop-off site for residents to use. City could offer curbside organics recycling collection for all residents through a single provider under contract with the city, or city could require haulers to each provide curbside organics recycling to residents when requested. The organics recycling fee could vary from hauler to hauler. At the January 11th council meeting, it was brought to staff's attention that community members have been billed by Republic for organics collection, and they did not sign up to participate. We've researched this, investigated it, had quite a bit of time spent to determine what has happened, and we've learned that some of Republic's customers had requested the organics recycling service, so it was being offered to all the haulers waste collection customers, and so that meant all customers were being charged. Republic offered this service to its waste hauler collection, so not all community members were offered this. This was in compliance with the city ordinance 117 and Hennepin County Ordinance 13, which both require the service to be offered. So currently, other licensed residential haulers have not been asked by customers to provide the service, so they are not charging at this time. Under this current framework, though, if any of the customers from another service hauler were to ask for curbside organics recycling, that hauler or that service provider could and would charge the customers, all of them. So Hennepin County Ordinance 13 currently offers an exemption to the curbside organics collection mandate. We are a 4th-class city, and it sets up and offers to residents an organics collection site within its boundaries, or we could partner with a neighboring community. If this site was provided, the city need not require curbside organics collection. Haulers would not be prohibited from providing curbside service, but they're not mandated to do so. Therefore, customers could select a provider that fits their individual needs based on if they need organics or not. On August 21st, 2023, so last fall, Council reviewed the options to provide a collection site and determined not to establish one. The City Council is empowered to alter this approach, seek qualifications for this exemption. However, absent a decision to pursue the exemption, the city must nominate a single curbside provider to collect organics from all residents or continue to mandate that every hauler do so. Solid waste haulers must charge all customers for curbside organics if the service is provided to any of its customers based on Minnesota State Statute 115A.93 subdivision 3C, which states, a licensing authority shall prohibit mixed municipal solid waste.
Can I interrupt?
Yes.
Can I make a motion? Sure. Can we authorize the city to option 1, which is to look at
sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. And I do that sometimes, Kathy, because
Nope,
we
I'm
have
glad
a
you
big
did.
long.
I wasn't going to read it all, I was going to jump to options, but can
Yeah.
I just point out one thing about option 1? Just to make sure that it's clear. So we will look into and work on the collection site to meet the Hennepin County ordinance. We'll work with our city attorney to amend the city ordinance 117 to remove that organics collection requirement. But there's also the possibility that the current provider may not discontinue the curbside service to the residents that have asked for it and would still continue to charge. That is a possibility.
Could they charge every single person?
They don't charge every single person, they only charge those who are their customers.
But they could charge every single person without.
That's big of them.
Yeah, that's 1,050, 1,054, 56 people that are getting charged and not benefiting from a service.
It would eliminate
But
the
that
requirement
is by
that
state
they,
statute.
but it would, if we had the exemption, it would eliminate the requirement that they had to do that. Would it not?
This is what happens when you have one
Would
party
not.
control in your state, by the way.
That's a whole nother conversation.
I know, but this is it.
You're not wrong.
And just to be clear, it would not. They still can charge. So if 7 of their customers want curbside organics, by state statute, they are allowed, because they cannot charge those who don't have organics curbside collection more or less than the other folks. So everybody gets charged the same.
So what does the exemption get us then? What's the exemption that we could be getting?
I'd hate to be one of those 7 people.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, yeah, the exemption gets you the option to repeal that portion of 117 that mandates that all haulers offer it. So you kind of have a free market element that takes over. So those providers that don't offer organics collection presently, even if Republic continued to do so, could be favored by those that don't want organics, right? You go to a provider that doesn't offer it because they don't have that's part of their fee. The businesses can do it at their own discretion, but they'd be competing in that market against others that can charge less for the service. And frankly, they can charge what they want for it. They can charge if there's only serving 6 sites and it doesn't cost them very much. You know, I can't speak to the business elements of it, but they can do that. But what their business model tells them is if we're doing it at all for anyone, we need to capture that fee. And the only way they can do that is by charging everyone.
Their business model does that, or the state statute does that?
State statute says they have to charge everyone the same. It doesn't say they have to
How
up
much?
the rates. So that's the business decision portion. But the point is if you repealed that portion of 117, established your own site, then any provider that's offering it now wouldn't have to in the future. So residents would have options. You go to the provider that doesn't offer organics if you don't want organics. And if you do want curbside collection, you'd go to the one that does.
Okay, thank you.
So, do you have any idea of what are organics? That's something you're gonna have to look at as a collection site. It could be
The
as simple
cost.
as a bin on city city property.
Correct.
At the park or something.
Yeah.
Do we got a motion and a
Motion
second?
and a second. Any further discussion on that?
One other item I wanted to mention. I noticed in doing some research on this topic that the Maple Grove Yard Waste site partners with a lot of other cities for free drop-offs. Should we be exploring that as another avenue for this?
I've asked about a couple different places, and everyone said they're full or not interested in.
No new partners?
Yeah, as of about a year ago.
Okay.
I can put some feelers out again, but
And there is grant funding available that would
Okay.
pretty much cover the cost.
yeah.
Okay. I have no problem with option one.
Okay. So we'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I would
Thank you.
also, thank you. And also maybe add to staff if, well, I completely lost my train of thought there. I think it was regarding if we do get this sorted out as we just made a motion to do so, that we put something in an upcoming newsletter notifying residents about that choice. And then it's up to them and who they choose to do business with, not us being in the way of that.
Well, the problem is it only takes one person to change the whole thing.
Yeah. That's more of a call to our representatives.
Are you gonna put in there that that's what happens when you have one party rule in the county and the state?
I'll put that into a call I can give Kristen Robbins a call and tell her to ask her to make a bill about this, repealing that.
Good luck.
I think she'd be sympathetic to the argument.
She is sympathetic, but she is opposed by over half of the people.
Not much we can do about that.
I know that.
Democracy at its worst is what it is right there.
Okay, on to 9B, which is request for authorization to bid Stieg Road improvements. Thanks for staying this.
Can I make a motion that we authorize?
Please don't, I
Second.
get yelled at.
Please don't.
No, I'm joking.
We could move it back on the agenda.
Is there any reason to not authorize the bid?
I don't think there's anything massive that you think we need that you'd like to make sure we cover that's
Everything's
outside of the
consistent with what we
packet.
talked for before. One update that Kevin mentioned that maybe you just want to be interested in. We're aware of the headstone that's out there. So far, we've been denied our initial request to remove it, so we're still working with them. We're at the status of they're trying to notify the next of kin. That's through the state archaeologist office. So we've given them next of kin. They're trying to notify them to see if we can gain approval through that method. So we'll work through it alongside, kind of parallel to the project.
Perfect, thank you. And for context for our Bellwether residents, this is for paving the rest of Stieg Road, but there's a gravestone that was found that has to go through a whole state process to get approved because there might be or may not be a body under there. So just to let you know, once that's cleared up, hopefully then it should be smooth sailing. So.
And if I can, great job exploring that. Possibly 2 youths were buried there, and they did find a headstone in the local church with the same names on and stuff, but staff has been extremely respectful and such because of this, so.
And it's a strict process.
It gets very strict, so thanks for your patience, guys.
John, did you want to make that motion?
We already
You
did.
did, second already.
I'm sorry, I missed
I'll
that.
third it if you need a third.
We got a third. All
Thank
right.
you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Good presentation.
Thank you.
I look forward
Can
to
I
low
make-
pavement pricing.
Can I make a motion?
On 9C?
Yes.
Yep.
Second.
And
Got to hear the motion first.
Except in post, except, in the future, this should be a consent agenda item.
I would agree, other than I probably would have pulled it to recognize Clyde.
If he was here.
True.
And a former me would pull it. If it was a line item, I would vote no, because I don't think once somebody resigns, the city council does not need to accept a
Yeah, what happens
resignation.
if we don't accept it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
shoot, I gotta go back to work now.
Yeah, so I think that's whatever. Brad and I argued
that's fair
about that a
enough.
lot. So I'm not if it's on consent, I won't bitch about that. But since it's not on consent, I don't think we should ever either accept or not accept a resignation. If they resign, they're done.
Fair enough. So is the motion to accept the resignation and authorize staff to complete the hiring process for 2 maintenance worker positions?
That's the motion.
Second.
Second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Nay. We don't accept resignation.
No? Okay.
There's your 4-1, John.
4-1. Maybe provide some context to it. We did that one other time where,
Thank you for your
where we
30
didn't
years
give
of
context
service.
and I don't know how it went over.
Well, to be fair, we've been trying to not let him retire and bring him back as a interesting
I mean, hey.
driver, but
He's
suddenly
retiring,
retired.
he's not
It's done.
Yeah, he's
resigning. There
I did
should
pull up
be-
a fact.
Yeah, no,
from-
it's a retire. It's
It's a
retire.
I did
retirement.
pull up one fact based on
Oh, it was
year
for
he
recognition?
started.
I'm sorry.
No, it wasn't.
This is
It
just
wasn't.
accepted. He's working basically 60 days in the letter, so he gave us a little bit more time to help us.
The fun fact from 1991, if my math is correct, is that Roger Clemens signed a then record $5.3 million contract with the Red Sox.
Dang.
5.3 was the highest paid player in baseball. Times have changed.
Thank
Okay.
him for
That was
his
our
service.
last Minnesota sports championship.
That was also the last time not only that one of the major four sports won a Minnesota championship, or a championship in Minnesota, but also the last time we were at a championship game or series.
Damn.
I was a baby. I was 3 years old. And that is depressing.
Quit bragging.
I was
Let's
11,
move
I
on.
did 10th grade.
Next subject, Mr. Mayor. Come on.
Can I make a
Alright.
motion on 9D? And then, I don't know how this will go, but I'm gonna make a motion that we decline the opportunity
Okay.
since they're not giving us any information.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion on that. My recommendation,
I was thinking it was one of those things that we would, but we need more information and we'll work together with Three Rivers and stuff, not just say,
this one's not Three Rivers, but I think kind of the same spirit of what
Go
you're
ahead.
saying. That I think we could kind of accomplish the same thing by just saying, we already passed a resolution.
I thought we did, yeah.
And here it is, and if that kills the project, that's up to you. But I think declining it just.
Okay, fair enough.
But we do have a motion and a second.
Vote on my
Motion and
motion.
a second.
Yep, motion and a second, so let's take a vote on it. All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. I'll make a motion.
Don't laugh, Jay. We'll get it
I
right.
lost an 0-5. That's my
And he
motion.
voted against himself.
That's happening.
It's getting late.
I'll make a motion that we direct staff to just continue the course and however you think appropriate.
Submit the resolution as approved on November 20th.
Yes.
Yep.
Reiterate the approval and
To be fair,
And
decline
express
the
our reluctance
opportunity
to have a blank
means
check.
Doing what we're saying.
Yes.
To be fair, option 2.
It
decline the
makes them
opportunity.
decline it, not us
Yeah, it
saying
just
we
basically
don't.
says we're not gonna reconsider any verbiage changes. So
Yep.
it's basically the same thing we submitted before is what declined.
Yep.
You put a lot of work in, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks.
I mean,
Well, it's-
where I'm at on this one is, I don't want to say no or yes.
We need a
Motion on
second.
that, yeah.
Who had first?
You made a motion. didn't you?
I
Second.
did make a
Oh, sorry.
motion.
Second.
It's okay.
I thought we already seconded it.
Continue.
Okay.
Yeah, second now.
I don't want to say no or yes without knowing more. I think we need to do winter trail clearance. I would probably prefer to clear the Three Rivers Trail before this one, unless they end up being merged in some way. I think that would be the best of both worlds. If the county could partner with us in Three Rivers and maybe do some higher quality, underpasses and things like that as part of a single trail that goes through open space, that's much better to me than a parallel trail next to a highway.
100% agree. I have an email that I'm working on that I'm going to reach out to Judy Johnson and the Met Council and Kevin Anderson at the county and point out that they worked with us on this. They could probably build less trail at a lot less expense and make it a lot more useful by just doing strategic areas. But that's kind of a future thing that we'll have to dive into with them if they should be interested in that, you'd think, but we'll see.
It's not even clear if it's gonna be an on-highway. trail.
Right, that's the issue.
They
That's
could
the
just
issue
be
with this
widening the
request.
shoulder on 116 and
Right.
asking us to plow.
That's my
additional.
issue with this request, is that they're asking us to make a uniform policy on a trail that we don't know the details or size or timing of and commit to that fully now? No.
And the discussions, as I looked at it, was the trail to be on the north of 30, which is where the Diamond Lake Trail is going to be, not on the southern portion of 116,
They
which is where we
partnered
don't
together,
currently
we can
have
make something
trails
good out of
planned.
it. But, so yeah, anyway, we had a motion and a second on proceeding as Jay had mentioned, so do that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then 9, no,